Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now today's episode, it is Sunday, so you know what that means. It's time to go around the net with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. So on the docket for today, we have Venmo and Amazon almost giving us some easy 5x back. We're checking in on the M1 owner's card. We have an Apple update for you. Then we have a ton of Chase stories, which closes with the potential of Jamie Dimon trying to transition out of the credit card space and onto the next big thing in the payments world. So of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, when it comes down to it, we're going to lead off with a story that, kind of made me laugh because I got excited for a second, and that is Amazon. See, Amazon is adding a partnership with Venmo. So basically, you'll be able to, go through, your checkout at Amazon, but you'll be able to link your Venmo account and, make purchases, right? So here are the details for you. Then I'll tell you why I thought this was exciting in a second. So again, Venmo, they're adding, they're going to be a payment method for Amazon. So really, you can either link your Venmo account, then you can pay with your Venmo account balance or a linked bank account. No credit card, unfortunately. Now, the deal does not include PayPal, which is the parent company of Venmo. So really, PayPal is doing this because they're, have been said to be looking for other revenue opportunities since, eBay is not as profitable for them anymore. Of course, eBay owned PayPal back in the day, then spun them off. The overall purchase volume is down about 45% for them. So again, they're looking for new opportunities. So the partnership makes sense there. Again, why I thought it was awesome in the beginning is because of, PayPal owning Venmo. And, coming up right now in Q4, we have, the 5% categories are PayPal for Chase. I thought it was going to be awesome. Turns out not so much, unfortunately, because they're excluding PayPal for now, which would have been key. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. Maybe if it goes well for, PayPal's the parent company using Venmo, they may potentially look to add PayPal to Amazon checkout in the future, because that would just go so far in making PayPal just that much more profitable of a category for us. So anyways, a story to keep our eye on. Now we're going to move next to one of the cards that came out last year that I think was pretty interesting. That was the M1 Owner's Rewards card. So M1 Finance, they're kind of like, an online brokerage. Well, of course, like everyone does, they came out with a credit card. And at the time, the credit card, it did have an annual fee, but the annual fee was waived if you joined like M1 Plus, which is, their pro service, I guess you could call it. Now, the card was pretty interesting. It was interesting because it was set up where that, if you held a position, like even a fractional share of a company, then there's a potential to get, a much higher multiplier on that company with the M1 card, which, I thought, for as far as integrations and tie-ins, that was pretty cool. Now, M1 is actually kind of updating the card, making some tweaks and kind of moving away from the annual fee model, but there is a little bit of a catch. So let's take a look at this, see if this card becomes any more advantageous for any of you active investors out there. So when we take a look at it again, M1 Finance card, the changes will be effective November 9th for new and existing customers. Now the $95 annual fee will be removed. Shareholding is no longer required to earn top rewards. Of course, the higher multipliers will only be open to M1 Plus customers, so that's the kind of the part that gets paywalled. Of course, they are currently offering some existing cardholders M1 Plus for about $75, which is about $50 off the normal price. And so again, I think this card's pretty interesting, especially if you use M1 as a service, to do your trades and things like that. But I kind of do like the changes, I guess, because again, it doesn't necessarily force you to, move into the M1 Plus service if you don't want to, simply to avoid the $95 annual fee, which is kind of a hard thing to charge on the card to begin with, since it is more of a cash back deal. But overall, let me know if this kind of changes your mind on the M1 card as a whole. Now with that, we're going to take a look at our obligatory Apple story for the week. Now we've been talking about Apple getting into the buy now, pay later service. So I think they're calling their service Apple Buy Now, Pay Later, which is not the most creative name, but at least they didn't put Pro in it or Ultra, I guess. I mean, that's something, right? Anyways, they're coming out with their service. Now, it was supposed to come out, I think, with iOS 16, which just went live with the new iPhones, but that has since been delayed. So we can expect this to come out in about spring of 2023, so mid-next year maybe, with the iOS 16.4 launch. So we have some ways to go. I think we're on like 16.02, I think, but that just like fixes bug patches and things like that. Now, no word on the delay. They've also, or why they're delaying it, I should say. They've also had other delays, like in iPad OS and things like that. if you follow along in the Apple news. So again, keep our eye on that because these buy now pay later services are getting bigger and bigger as we go. And usually, when more bigger tech companies come in, at least they can potentially add something of uniqueness to make it maybe a little bit better, push up the competition. But with that, we're going to move to 3 Chase stories to close out. So the first one here is pretty interesting. One of the things I get asked about a lot is actually credit limit and how to get credit limit increases. Well, it looks like Chase is not necessarily rolling this out for all users just yet, but for some users, if you go into the app, you can actually ask for a credit limit increase, and then you'll be able to do that just by requesting it. There's no hard pull this time around. So it's under the transfer balances section and just says request credit limit increase. So overall, that's pretty helpful. Credit limit's not something I worry too much about. Really, personally, I look at, did I get enough credit limit to maximize the card, right? So like a Freedom Unlimited or a Freedom Flex, I don't need any more than $1,500 because I'm really not going over that amount, right? But again, if you start out low and you want to get more credit limit, this is an easier option. There's no hard pull. Chase has historically done hard pulls. Now again, no word on this. They're going to just make this a mass offering to everyone. But right now we have seen some folks find this in their apps. If you're looking for a credit limit increase, I would take a look and see if you can get it with Chase. Now on to Chase cards or new upcoming cards. Chase has now announced a partnership with DoorDash. Again, they've already had partnerships, in services and coupons and things like that. But DoorDash will be getting its own credit card sometime in the near future. Not a ton of details on this one, but here's what we do know. Again, launching the first DoorDash credit card. It will be the MasterCard payment network, and then it will be a MasterCard World Elite as well, which overall is pretty good. I think Chase has done, a decent job with their co-branded cards. They're one of the better co-branded cards. We just saw the Instacart card come out, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, midsummer. Regardless if you like Instacart or not, the fact that they had that card is, I think it was no annual fee, and it gave you 5% back on Instacart, as well as some other perks. It was pretty good, right, for people who use that. Of course, I still think to this day, Amazon Prime card is probably the gold standard for co-branded non-travel cards, right? That 5% back at Amazon. So, if you are into DoorDash, this could be something to look at here and look forward to. So I'm going to guess they'll follow the Instacart model and they won't make it any worse. It'll just be, more specific to DoorDash. But of course, new cards are always fun. We're going to have to keep our eye out for that when it officially drops. So with that, we now have our last story. This is the one I found most interesting. We've talked about the combination of this story before, right? So, last week on the show, if you watched, we talked about, the payment network wars between, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, which are payment networks, and then retailers getting together, like I think 1,600 of them or so, signing a letter to Congress saying like, hey, we really want you to step in and give us more competition, more choice in the payment network space. Their argument was that, a Visa card has to run through the Visa payment network, but why can't I run it through the more affordable network? And so we've also talked about Chase looking to get away from being so dependent on credit cards. I think overall they made about like $5 billion on their credit card portfolio, which is a ton of money, ton of ultimate reward points being paid out for sure. And how much more would they make if they abolished 524 and let us get all the cards we wanted? That might cost them more. I'm not really sure, but anyways, the overall point here is that Chase has been trying to cut out the middleman and build their own payment service. So very similar to like a Venmo or a Zelle where, it's not going through a payment network and a payment processor. It's basically just Chase, cutting them out and going straight to the merchant directly. So if we take a look at it, again, we touched on the $5 billion number here from credit card revenue. But again, I think it's going to be called like Chase Banking or something like that, which is not the most unique name. But essentially, again, they want to send money from your account direct to the merchant account. It's going to skip the card processors. They're hoping to go live sometime next year. But, the thing that Venmo and Zelle didn't get was like that wider adoption range, right? We use it. You might use Venmo or Zelle to pay your friends back. The young man who rents one of my houses, he pays me through Venmo. I didn't have Venmo until, I met him, and that's his preferred payment method. But you know what? He pays on time every time. So whatever, Venmo it is, right? But it never really caught on the wider scale with like the merchants and retailers and things like that. Smaller shops, sure, but like not the big guys, right? So it becomes an interesting time for Chase to do this when, the retailers are also displeased with how the payment networks are treating them and non-flexibility there. I thought about this a little bit more. And, because the other part is adoption with the retailers. And we can see retailers would clearly be motivated to try something else. Now, as far as the customer, I don't necessarily think is that customers actually love credit cards. I have like a background in like process improvement, continuous improvement, and the whole Six Sigma deal, right? And one of the stories they tell you in the very beginning is like, why do you go to Home Depot, right? You go to Home Depot to buy like a 1/4-inch drill bit, and like no one actually wants a 1/4-inch drill bit, since you're like some kind of like collector or whatever, right? What you really want the drill bit for is to put a hole in something, but most often than not, you really just don't want to put a hole in your wall. You want to hang something up. So if we keep asking why and getting to the core of it with customers, it's not necessarily that customers love credit cards so much, right? It's that you either love the protection, the security, the ease of use, or the reward system. Something like that is why you like credit cards. There's also, playing the float game, right? Where technically if you buy something on the first of the month, you basically have a free loan, if you include that grace period right at the end to actually make the statement. You get a free loan for quite some time, which is something you don't get with other products. I say all that to say this could be perfect timing for Chase to kind of push into this market, because if, to master the customer, you really just have to figure out, okay, what type of rewards programs can I offer these customers? And if you're cutting out the middleman, like we'll just assume, hey, they're fine with the investment cost, the R&D to run this whole thing. But if you're cutting out payment networks, you don't have to pay that anymore. Again, you're kind of back to setting the fees, which is what the retailers don't like to begin with. But for right now, we'll assume they're fair with it just to get it going. It could actually be fairly easy to, win people over. Getting people to try something new, again, is usually when more bonuses come into play, things like that. So, it could be possible, and I think now is like a decent time for them to try it, given how upset merchants are. And I do think customers can slowly be won over time, especially with Chase being the biggest bank and having the most accounts. Again, they put sign-up bonuses around it, right? We will talk about it, and we will probably use those products, because we're not here to pick our favorite card. We're here to pick the most profitable card. I think that's really going to play a big part in it. So I found this story to definitely be the most interesting one of the week. I think there was actually a quote in there that you could use as the headline that, Mr. Diamond himself has told other executives within the house that, hey, if you were found withholding information from other departments, trying to, save yourself, so to speak, that he would fire you. So they're definitely serious about it. And overall, the final thought here makes a lot of sense, because you look at, it's one thing entirely to, be beaten by an external company, right? But when you try to build stuff and cannibalize your own products, and you think about, how close, the iPhone, right, bumps up against like an iPad, maybe they basically do kind of the same thing. But internally, if you're cannibalizing yourself, then it's probably not that big of a deal, because why you should do it over having other people do it. And that's how you push things forward. That's why we saw the final retirement of the iPod, because, the iPhone finally pushed it out of existence, but again, it was still around for quite some time. So I don't think this is the end of credit cards by any means. I think they're just going to explore another avenue, and I'm interested because it could become profitable for us. So anyways, guys, that has been the news for this week. So if you liked it, drop me a thumbs up down below. Of course, if you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Of course, right back here every week with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. Of course, my question for you, let me know what you think about these stories. Are you looking forward to a DoorDash card? What does it need? Especially this Chase story. What do you think? Like, what would win you over to at least try a non-credit card payment service through Chase? What kind of bonuses would you hope to see? Of course, what else have you seen going on in the news? Love to get your thoughts on all that and more down below. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and talk to you on Monday.